Thanks everyone for being here. Sorry to hold you up. Got a series of announcements about, of course, yesterday and into today. Let me just really kind of start with the obvious. Based on all the information we had yesterday, obviously, last night into this morning, clearly did not turn out the way we had anticipated based on all available information. So let me address a couple things up front. With regard to the decision to close city government and then others, in some instances maybe either following our lead or in coordination with our many stakeholders and partners, we certainly try to wait until the latest possible time to make such an announcement. You'll recall at yesterday's noon press conference, I said that we hoped to have a decision by the 6:30 press conference as to what was going to happen today with regard to city government and schools. You'll also recall that at the 6:30 press conference, when asked why weren't we prepared to make a decision with regard to the city and the schools, given what the projections were at the time, which were 10 to 14 inches from the National Weather Service and just about every weather service, and I think many of you were reporting the same, we said because of the changing nature of the storm, I wasn't prepared to make that decision, which is why we then subsequently had the 11 o'clock announcement, at which we then also announced that the National Weather Service had just 5 minutes before changed their prediction from 10 to 14 inches to 6 to 10 inches, but we stood by the decision being made at that time. As I mentioned, we try to wait until the last possible moment for these kinds of significant decisions, but we also need to give citizens notice to make alternate arrangements for children, child care, transportation, and those kinds of critical personal decisions. So it is a bit of a timing issue and a balancing act. It's certainly at that point impossible to reverse a decision such as a government closure in the very early hours of a new day, somewhere between 1 and 3 a.m. That would be completely, from my perspective at least, unreasonable, unfair. Virtually no one would see that announcement, and then you have folks truly scrambling, trying to figure out if they have to go to work and their kids are staying home at that time of the morning. And so certainly if at even the 11 o'clock press conference, if we had the kind of information that all of us subsequently had much earlier this morning, we could have in fact reversed that decision, but by that point in time, it was just much too late. Lastly, from a personal perspective, I'd certainly rather be prepared and subsequently disappointed with inconvenience than underprepared and surprised with any kind of tragedy. And public safety is always first in these kinds of decisions. Let me also mention to you some statements that have come out from the National Weather Service just this morning. Gary Siskowski, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, who's the meteorologist with the National Weather Service of Mount Holly, has tweeted out the following statements. My deepest apologies to many key decision makers and so many members of the general public. You made a lot of tough decisions expecting us to get it right, and we didn't. Once again, I'm sorry. This is a big storm further off to our northeast. New York City will see good amounts of snow, and for portions of New England, it will be a very high impact. But for much of New Jersey and the Philadelphia metropolitan area, this is a big forecast miss. Thank you to the many folks who have been very gracious on social media this morning. Much appreciated. Those are all comments from the National Weather Service. And so lastly, okay. Looney Tunes, okay. Let me express tremendous appreciation for the coordination from CBS 3 for that commercial. Appreciate it. Lastly, the fact of the matter is that we have a good relationship with our partners at the National Weather Service, and we appreciate their ongoing support. Forecasts, busts, if you might call it that, do happen. Meteorology is not a completely exact science. The snowfall gradient with this storm was always going to be tight on the western edge of the storm. Efforts, including research, are already underway to more easily communicate this and future forecasts uncertainty. The National Weather Service downgraded at approximately 12:30 a.m. after holding to double-digit snow forecasts for 36 plus hours. That is the information that we had during that time. Even when downgraded to 6 to 10 inches around 9:30 p.m., just before making our decisions, we were still told to brace for heavy bands overnight, which would make for a very complicated morning commute. Hence, we maintain our position that even with the downgrade to 6 to 10 inches, that was still much too much to send people into early in the morning. We remained in winter storm warning until 12:30 a.m. until the 12:30 a.m. Downgrade. So that's our perspective on the decision-making process. The National Weather Service and their statements, I think, really do speak for themselves. They acknowledge that basically they made a mistake, didn't get it completely right. They've acknowledged that, and I think when someone steps up that way, we should acknowledge their honesty. The fact of the matter is, at least during my 7 years as mayor, I haven't done a complete analysis of it, but I think for big storms, the National Weather Service has probably been 90+% right. We've depended on them time and time again, and they have accurately predicted virtually every big storm that we've had. We'll continue to work with them and many other services. On to today. Today, snow, I guess intermittently, mainly before noontime. Highs today near 30, northwest winds around 18 miles an hour. Chance of precipitation is estimated at 80%. Total daytime snow accumulation of less than a half inch to an inch is possible. 1 inch of snow was recorded at the Emergency Operations Center at 7 a.m. There are parts of the city, Dave Perry can talk to you about this, there are some parts of the city in the far northeast that did receive more snow, and he can explain to you the reason why. Tonight, we're expecting basically a cloudy overnight, gradually becoming partly cloudy with a low around 18, northwest winds about 16 miles an hour. On Wednesday, we're expecting actually somewhat sunny weather with a high, if you can call it that, near 33. Northwest winds 10 to 14 miles an hour. Obviously, city government is closed today. Philadelphia Public and Archdiocesan schools are closed. The 311 call center remained open overnight and will transition back to normal operations this evening. Normal operating hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The snow emergency was officially ended at the direction of the managing director at 6 a.m. This means that normal legal parking may resume on snow emergency routes. Governor Tom Wolf declared a disaster emergency, as you know, for the state yesterday. Neighboring states and jurisdictions are beginning to scale back their response operations. New Jersey rescinded their travel ban on I-95 and is now allowing passenger vehicles to travel. On the transportation front, SEPTA Regional Rail will today still run on that Saturday schedule, as mentioned yesterday. The Kenwood line was never anticipated to operate today. CCT will operate with limited service. Preemptive bus detours are in the process of being lifted. Currently, there are 14 bus routes on detour. Customers should continue to monitor www.septa.org and click on System Status to get real-time updates. Amtrak will operate at reduced frequency on the Acela Express, the Northeast Regional, and Keystone service lines. A couple last things. Our salting operations continue and are underway through the morning as, unfortunately, the freezing temperatures will continue to make our roads slick and drivers are urged to exercise caution. Again, notwithstanding the fact that we didn't get this huge blizzard, drivers and people who are walking out and about should not think that suddenly it's like the middle of July out there. Roads are slick. Black ice is certainly a possibility. Folks need to be very, very careful. Regular trash and recycling that was canceled for today. Again, we asked the Tuesday, trash and recycling folks to hold their materials until next week. Trash and recycling collections will resume tomorrow on Wednesday, and rear yard collections are also reinstated immediately. To be clear, beginning tomorrow, all residents can place their trash out on their normal days in the normal place where the Streets Department would normally pick it up. It is still bitterly cold outside and will be overnight into tomorrow. Be sure to check again on our senior citizens, our sick and vulnerable and shut-in neighbors. Make sure that they are safe, warm, and secure, and have the kind of supplies and foodstuffs that they need. Citizens should continue to contact the Project Home Outreach Hotline, 215-232-1984. If you see a person out on the streets, again, given the bitter cold temperatures and other conditions outside, folks should not be out laying out on the streets. The operator at that number will ask for a description and an approximate location for the person, so please try to give them as much information as possible so we can get the outreach teams to any homeless who are out to make sure that they are in shelter. With regard to pets, again, the ordinance is still in place. It is bitterly cold outside. Let's make sure that we're, treating our dogs and pets and others in a humane fashion. Don't leave them out during this weather. 1, it's against the law. 2, you can get fined. And 3, it's just really a bad thing to do. With that, why don't we get Dave Perry up, tell us kind of what else is going on out there and what the troops are up to. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave Perry, Streets Commissioner. Last night we salted approximately 1,000 miles of the city's tertiary roadway network. They are primarily the neighborhood streets in the city of Philadelphia. We should be completing that operation by around noon or early afternoon today. The arterial streets in the city and the secondaries are mainly wet. However, up in the far northeast, we have reports of 2 to 3 inches of snowfall overnight. So that will be an area that we will be maintaining a plowing operation today. The way this storm came in, it was a very tight gradient from east to west. The farther east you went through Philadelphia and into New Jersey, the higher the accumulations, which is why Northeast Philadelphia received the highest amount of snow in this particular snowfall. Just to reiterate what the mayor said, today there'll be no trash or recycling collections. We will resume our collections tomorrow. The only trash trucks you'll see out on the street today will be a few that we need to send out to pick up some rubbish that we were unable to collect on Monday. So any of the Monday collections that were left on the curbside, we will pick those up today, but they'll be the only collections done today. If any residents have issues with icy streets, primarily as we get towards the evening hours tonight, where we could possibly have a refreeze type situation, please contact 311. We will maintain salt crews throughout the day and overnight to respond to any icing complaints that come up. Any snow squalls that come along today, if there's any left heading in this direction, please be advised that they could whiten the roadway and drive carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. And I'd also like to send a huge note of thanks to all of our public employees. They're, again, gearing up, being geared up and ready to go to fight whatever storm was going to come to us. And whether it came or not, they were ready. For that, I want to thank all of our public employees who were out last night waiting for whatever might come. And whether what we anticipated showed up or not, their service is still valuable to the city of Philadelphia. They had to do certain things to get prepared, and we're ready to work the very long hours that are involved in these kinds of weather events. So to all the public employees of the city of Philadelphia, let me say thank you very, very much for your efforts, your commitment, your dedication to our great city. It's because of our public employees that we're in a position to be so coordinated in our efforts. our Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Everett Gillison, who leads overall these operations, Rich Negrin, our Managing Director and Deputy Mayor for Administration and Coordination. Thank him for his support, and certainly our Director of Emergency Management in the City of Philadelphia, Samantha Phillips. All of these leaders combined, and so many, many others. The vast array of folks that you saw here just yesterday, all leaders, all parts of the significant emergency preparations that the City of Philadelphia is always ready, willing, and able to put forward on behalf of the citizens of Philadelphia. So with that, I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have. Walt? Yeah. Well, hard to say. I mean, I quite honestly don't remember how many times we've actually closed the city. I think it's been few. And those have been, again, significant storms that in some instances, I think not too long ago we may have been closed for a couple days. And in some instances just the one day. So obviously there's an economic impact. We can certainly talk with the Commerce Department, they can come up with some estimates. In terms of costs to the city for this particular storm, again, we were fully geared up and ready to go. I gave you the numbers yesterday, 375 pieces of equipment, 800 personnel. When it was becoming apparent that we were not going to get what had been anticipated, Dave and his team start to scale back and start ratcheting the operation back. So again, no way of knowing 6 hours after not much happened what the true cost of that is, but somewhere down the line we'll actually know what the last 24, 36 hours actually cost, whether big service or minimal service was actually provided. People were working. In many instances they're on overtime, they're on extended hours, and they were here and ready to work. The fact that the weather didn't show up, not their fault. Yes. This is it's a piece of data. Every storm is different, and the one thing that no one has ever been able to do anything about is the weather. And it's not just big storm events. I mean, any one of us has been in a situation where, you look at the weather the night before you go to sleep. Hey, it's going to be sunny tomorrow, and fantastic. You look out the window and it's raining, or vice versa. So I mean, it is what it is. We'll take it into consideration, but the overriding component of our decision-making process is public safety. And so I'd rather be, wrong with virtually nothing happen, as opposed to being wrong and 14 inches of snow show up and we're not ready for it. I mean, that's just worse for a whole host of reasons, and it's dangerous. And so we're always going to put the public safety in the forefront, as opposed to, potentially being criticized for being over-prepared. I mean, that's, like I said, every storm is different. Mike? I don't know that there's ever been any, true kind of analysis about that. I mean, our public employees obviously are valuable, and there's business to be done. I mean, pick a department or agency. I mean, somebody wants to get a permit, or they want to do whatever they want to do with the city government. I mean, I think the person who wanted to get a permit today is the person who's going to go get the permit tomorrow. So, I mean, it's just life. I mean, I think people recognize that different things will happen no matter where you are. If you're in the Northeast, part of the country between, I don't know, December and March, it may snow. If you're somewhere else, you get heavy rains. In other parts of the country, you get hurricanes. I mean, it's all kind of built in to, the norms of that place. But I don't think we've ever tried to figure out something like that, and I'm not sure what you would do with the information once you did it anyway. So, All right. Anything else? Les? You know, there's so many places I could go with a response to that, but I do, look, that's a tough job. I mean, meteorologists, economists, I mean, you're in these professions where your decisions can have a serious impact on folks. And, you get one wrong, and folks are, looking at you like you have three heads. As I said, for our 7 years and the big storms that we've had, National Weather Service I think has really been on the money probably 90+% of the time. And, for many of us, if you're 90+% most of the time, not bad. But, it plays out on a very large stage, and it does have some other consequences that goes with it. So, long answer to the question. The really short answer is no. I'm nowhere near qualified for that position, so won't be pursuing that one. Thanks.